Hi, I'm Bob Butera with Christine Delonzo, owner of
Amelia Paris Hair Salon,
in
owner of.
Yoga Life Institute. So we're speaking to you um, to discuss how yoga therapy is, in a sense, in some version, essential for hairstylists and all people in the industry of the beauty industry. And I wanted to share with you a little bit about Christine's discovery from yoga and yoga therapy that she wasn't even aware of. So she came to us roughly 5 years ago to learn more about yoga, and she thought, learning how to teach yoga would be a way of deepening her own practice. And how she came to us was somewhat coincidental. She was looking for something more in her life, and then Christine, why don't you tell us about this magazine that arrived?
Yeah, there was at the hair salon, a random magazine I had never seen before showed up, and I picked it up and started reading it, and I loved every article in there. Was on healing and just different things that I saw behind the chair. And I thought to myself, wow, that applies to how I'm doing hair every day. These are different things that I'm seeing. And then at the last part of the magazine, it was Go Deeper, and it had yoga teacher training. And it had a picture of you, and I called right away, and I said, I got you on the phone that day, and which was crazy. And you were like, oh, okay, are you thinking about being a teacher? And I said, no, I really don't want to be a teacher at all. I feel like some sort of a connection there. And you said, great, let's meet.
So when we met, we started off like everybody else. I explained to her how you would learn to teach yoga. And simultaneously with that, we try to teach people the broader emphasis of yoga, which would be about personal transformation, where you would be using, physical practices that everybody knows about, the yoga stretches, breathing, relaxation.
Yes.
Then you start to go into meditation, and when you study yoga in depth, you realize that there's practices and understandings of psychology, nutrition,
Chemistry.
self-awareness,
Curiosity, like so many
intuition.
things.
So where we start with each student individually is figure out what's their key stress or their major stressor. So again, this is just their personal practice, but without reducing a person's stress, how can they really be a yoga teacher? And you don't just reduce your stress by doing yoga poses. You need to look at your life in general. Christine's hardest thing was dealing with all the problems that she would hear from her clients.
Yeah. I was ready to have a nervous breakdown and to give up on my profession that I've been in for 26 years. I mean, I loved it so much, but we're not trained. We're trained in the artistry. We're trained in the beauty of the hair color and the chemicals and how to apply and how to cut shapes and forms into hair fiber. But no one ever mentions that every single person is going to come to you and start to process when you put your hands on them.
And I think we all know that when we go and a hairstylist treats us, it's an immediately a close friend, because they're literally touching you and caressing you. I mean, it's like extremely intimate for anybody. And so you have to immediately have a lot of trust. And what ends up happening is the hairstylist, in order to develop a rapport with you, has to show some interest in you, and you start to talk. And if you have some unresolved emotions, and the hairdresser is a really kind person, they're with you for a half hour. In the case of women's hairstyling, it can be an hour.
Sometimes 9 hours.
Yeah, they could be there all day.
Of hair extensions, it's a full 9 hours with one person.
That's right, all day long. And then there's repetitive, the relationship is monthly or so, or however often you see each other.
Yeah.
So what was happening with Christine is certain people would go through a rough time in their life. Somebody goes through a divorce. Well, how many people does she deal with during a week that are going through a divorce, job change, problem with their child, somebody's ill in their family? If you put us together and just poll 100 people that she meets every week, she's dealing with all that. I mean, I think she talks to them more than their priest does.
They oftentimes say, this is like a confessional.
Right. It's like a confessional or a psychotherapy session, except a psychotherapist sees 15 people a week and she's seeing 100 or...
And they're trained in it.
Yes.
They have training and tools.
So you can imagine year after year, and then she's bottling all this stuff up. I'm not going to go into the first example that Christine gave me, but I asked for a specific example that I will never break any confidence, so I'm not going to share that example. But we talked about one example, and then I tried to show her how she might handle that. And what she worked on in the first year was to just listen to people. It may sound very rudimentary, right? But to just listen to people means you can't give advice. You reflect back what they're saying.
So hard.
Yeah. So, Christine, my boyfriend broke up with me. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And they're asking you for advice. As soon as you cross that line, you become essentially a participant with them in their drama.
Yes.
And when you do that, it's not just for that one friend. We can all do that for our friends. This is not, but this is her profession where she's seeing, again, multiple people every single day, every week of the year. So she made a vow to just listen and not correct and not give advice. And as soon as she did that, it created a healthy boundary. And this is something that, like you said, all therapists would be trained in. A psychotherapist or even a minister, they take counseling classes. So tell me how you felt when you started to just listen. What happened was different?
I wasn't trying to fix everyone. I was able to just sit with them and still do my art and repeat back to them a little bit of what they were saying so they felt heard, like I wasn't ignoring them.
Right.
But I just didn't get into it.
Okay.
I just didn't.
Let me ask you this. When you try to fix something, which I think is a very natural thing to want to do, right? Somebody tells you their problem.
Yep.
We don't want them to have that problem, so we try to help them. Why is that a burden to you? Why would it feel heavy to do that?
I feel, and I learned this from all of the teachers here, that you can help other people get curious about what's happening inside of their body. But they know what they need. I don't know what they need. And I have to let go of my personal stuff and life experiences and let them figure it out for themselves. And that's what's super empowering for them. Like you taught me, I can ask them questions so that they sort of are thinking in their heads or get curious about themselves or how they might handle it, but I can't tell them what I think they should do.
So you don't have a crystal ball?
No, but I used to think I had to. I used to take on that responsibility all the time.
And you would be trying to brainstorm while doing somebody's hair, which is
while
actually not easy.
No!
It's like there's skill to it, and you can't make an error, or else you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cut that person's hair in the wrong spot, and you're in trouble. The
or
color,
your placement of the foils.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a lot.
Exactly. So you have to concentrate on what you're doing. I've never seen a psychotherapist like knitting and building something or drawing something, right?
Yeah.
They're just listening. So I think one thing you're saying is, if you think about your brain when talking to somebody else, if you're trying to figure out what that person needs, then your brain is going to struggle and you're going to burn up a ton of energy. And it's going to turn into emotional energy because you're not going to be capable of answering their problem. Just as Christine said, a person has to figure out their problem. If you've ever been to a counselor, it can be almost frustrating when you're the client because they don't give you the answer if they're really good.
Yeah.
Right?
Like you.
Oh, yeah?
Like in the beginning, I try to get you to do for me
funny.
what I was doing for everyone else,
Right.
and give me all the answers, and you just smile.
Well,
and you would create a space.
I had to create a space,
Yeah.
but we had to shift the pattern. And so you see, what I'm trying to show you is when you try to do something that you're not capable of doing, and you keep trying and trying and trying, you will get very tired very quickly. And simultaneously, I think when we're dealing with another human being in that circumstance, somehow their emotional pain gets stuck in us when we try to do something that's not actually appropriate. So the irony is, listening and holding the space so they can fix their own problem is the nice thing to do. And then suddenly you're
It's
more
true.
at peace because you're not trying, you're giving them the power and a little bit of space and attention so that they can think about what's going on in their life. And that's what a counselor does for a large portion of the time. It's not an easy thing to do, and you do have to practice. So I'm going to say it was 6 months, it was 3 months before she started having breakthroughs and felt her stress level decrease a whole lot. In 6 months, you were just like getting really good, and then her customers started changing. So this is another interesting thing in your salon. The people who like to complain and suck other people into their dramas stopped showing up as much when you started listening because you were basically putting them back on themselves. So then her clientele started to shift slightly, and maybe even the behavior patterns of her clientele changed.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And they felt like they were different people because you started having a different dialogue. So there's a second phase because now Christine went on and has done our yoga therapy training. So she's now a yoga therapist. By the time you watch this video, she will be completed. And the second stage that she went through was then coping with strong emotions. Because when somebody brings up a strong emotion, you might not try to fix that, but it might weigh even heavier on you. So what we practice is empowering a person to understand their emotion and to name it and to just kind of let it come out, let its roots be exposed. So if I'm feeling upset, you find out a little bit about why. And as you start to affirm a person and allow them to have their emotion, they start to make sense of their life. Mind you, Christine has a boundary because she's not figuring out the emotion. The client's doing it. So she's taken it a second level from listening to them processing the emotion.
Yeah, I had a situation this morning where...
On a daily basis.
I mean,
I can't believe, for one, I can't believe how hard your job is actually, and that nobody really knows, and how wonderful you've done. So that's awesome. So, yeah, right. So she gets the person to start to understand the emotions. And
but
then,
sometimes you got to stop them. Like what happened today where it wasn't even about the content. It was about, there was such a charge for that particular person that the energy was just they just started coming at me. And I stopped them. I said, "Can I stop you for a second?"
Wow.
And that itself was just creating space.
Right.
And then my next thing was, can you see what's happening in your body right now? Let's forget about what the trigger is, but I just want you to notice because I'm seeing your nervous system change and I'm seeing this really strong rise, like a big giant wave, and I'm about ready to get hit with it. So I'm wondering if you're noticing the same thing.
Wow.
And if we can take that out and just sort of get to the context.
Nice.
I would have never did that before.
Right.
I would have gotten hit by the wave and drowned.
Right. And then you would have thought that the compassionate thing or the empathetic thing would be to feel that emotion with them, which we can do this for our child or our spouse or our friend because that's just one time, and it's not necessarily on a daily basis even. But again, for you can't do that because a human being can only handle so many other so many emotions coming at them. So, but simultaneously, you're extremely kind, and you basically gave that person an affirmation because we're all going to be upset at certain points. We're going to have emotions.
Yeah.
It's can we get to the other side of them? And when a person's not depressed or having an anxiety panic attack or what have you, they're not going to go see a specialist for every single emotion. So, we do help each other in these smaller ways. So then you get them in touch with their body. And then you probably get them in touch with their breath.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I don't know if you found this, but one of the things I find when you do work with somebody with emotions and you're in this service industry, if you can take an emotion, like if my hand moving back and forth is like the emotion, well, it's connected to my wrist, right? So it's connected to the source of the issue. So if I can get the hand to stop, right, which you did with your client,
Yeah.
then I see suddenly the source, and then I realize, oh, I understand why I'm feeling this way. And then I can alter and I can move my arm into another position. So I don't have to keep having this emotion forever. I start to understand it. So by doing some deep breathing, or Christine gave us the example of feeling your body, coming back into yourself, like grounding, you suddenly start to gain some insight. The final step of what she then works with people, and this would be no longer in the chair, right? Like this would be if she actually met a person just for the yoga therapy. There she would get at trying to understand the patterns and attitudes, if you will, beliefs about life that caused a person to get into the situation they were in and handle it the way they were handling it. And if you can start to like unpack those beliefs, and again, that's where you couldn't be working on somebody's hair simultaneously. You know, you'd have to be in a more one-on-one situation.
Yeah. But you can throw a little bit of that in there.
You can throw it in there. You can throw it in there here and there, but to really concentrate on it, I think it's good then to see her as a yoga therapist, if that's where you head. And for the smaller stuff and the different emotions and just kind of grounding people, what she's doing, the skill that she can show hairstylists and folks in the service industry could be really valuable. It takes time to integrate and learn, and you might need coaching to figure out, like, understand your own personal background and how you handle situations. There was one we didn't even bring up yet. We've mostly been talking about when people have strong emotions. Well, there's another, I think, even more volatile subject is when people start to gossip.
Oh.
Yeah, and in the salons, they're kind of like these little havens for complaining.
Well, that's the hairdressers then being
Yeah.
so filled with all of the stuff that they're trying to process with all these different people.
Right.
And then they'll go into the back room and they'll be like, could you believe that Mary did blah, blah, blah? And then everyone just gets into it. And then there's all these emotions that they were feeling behind the chair that they don't understand what to do with or what's happening for them or how to get rid of it.
So, right. And that's why we want to ground it in the moment. But what I would want to say is you're looking 5 years of practice after already being a very caring, kind person, and you learn many things in your 20 years before you started doing this sort of thing. So you want to learn this stuff and then set it up where you have a mentor or somebody you can bounce off some ideas, because certain situations will be harder for you to overcome than other situations. And it will tie into your own personal background. And the beauty of it is if you stick with it, your experience at work will be completely changed. And what I've seen with you, I will say, I've trained other people in the beauty industry, and they, to a person, came in very stressed out, and they're just happy as a clam right now. And they feel really empowered, and they feel like their work goes beyond the external stuff they're doing and actually helps people improve their overall lives.
Yeah. Well, just as a hairstylist in general, we take a lot of classes to learn our craft. Haircutting, this and that. I strongly recommend getting into a practice of yoga where you're learning tools to deal with your own stress, your own ability to handle all these other people that are coming at you. Like, I think that yoga therapy should be taught in hair salons so that you understand what's happening. It should be in the schools. It should be in the vo-techs. Like, yes, here's the creative end of it, and here's the therapy end of it, the magic that's going to happen no matter what. Even though you think you're just an artist, you're going to end up having this whole other experience and connection with people, which is beautiful. It's amazing. It's what makes it so passionate. But the thing is, just understanding how to handle that gift is so important. Thank
So,
you. You gave me that.
I guess that's your next job.
Well, you know, it's, I feel like connecting with someone like you is life-changing because it gives you a different spin, a different understanding. It forces you to become curious about the essence of life and human interaction, which is what we were dealing with the whole time.
Tell me more about that. That would be one of my classic lines. So how about if we take a pause here?
Yeah.
That was awesome talking.
Yeah, that's great.
And
Thank you.
I hope you can continue touching people's lives.
Thank you. And any hairdressers out there, I strongly recommend this program here at Yoga Life Institute.
There will be seminars for hairstylists coming soon.
Yes, yeah, hairdressing for our industry and tying it all together with the magic of the therapy aspect of it. So,
Great. All
thank
right.
you.
Sure.